We read in this week's portion, Toldos. This is after, in the previous week's parsha, we speak about the passing of Avram. Chazal tell us that because Hashem had promised Avram that he would pass away b'seva tova, at a good old age, therefore he had to have 5 years removed from his life. Initially, Avram was meant to live 180 years, but he had to have 5 years removed from his life because Esav, when Avram was 175 years old, had chosen to violate 5 cardinal sins on the same day. If Avram would have realized that this happened, it would have caused him a level of pain which would have undermined his Seva Tova. It wouldn't have been considered a good old age. Therefore, Hashem concealed it from him. That the day that he passed away, this is the day that he violated the 5 cardinal sins. Murder, adultery, blaspheming, heresy, 5 cardinal sins on that day. So that Avram should not be aware of that, therefore God took him before he'd be aware of that. So although it had spoken about the passing of Avram in last week's parsha, as it says that Yitzchak and Yishmael buried their father in the Maris Machpelah, factually, at that moment, Avram did not die, did not pass away. Yitzchak, he was 60 years old when he had his children. Avram passed away when Yaakov and Esav were 15 years old, when they were 15. So, but we already speak about the passing of Avram when Yitzchak took Rivka as a wife at the age of 40, when Eliezer had come back. So factually, if Avram lived many more years, so why did we speak about the passing of Avram, but factually did live on? We understand, it's an understood fact, that we speak about a patriarch and a matriarch. What is a patriarch? What's a matriarch? A patriarch, a person could be spiritualized at an advanced level that he could be a patriarch, but if he doesn't have the wife who's worthy, who's qualified to be matriarch, it doesn't mean anything. Why wasn't the daughter of Eliezer qualified to be the wife of Yitzchak? Because she wasn't a qualified matriarch. Without a matriarch, you cannot be a patriarch. Because the objective is to father a certain type of child. A child who has relevance to the eternity of spirituality. From Eliezer's daughter, because her essence was cursed, because she was a descendant of Ham, who was cursed by Noach, therefore that could not be the foundation of a Klal Yisrael. Couldn't build a Klal Yisrael on this. Therefore it had to be Rivka. What happened after Avram Sori Menu passes away? Yitzchak is at the Akedah, but Avram is still the patriarch of the past. What happens now that Yitzchak marries Rivka? When he marries Rivka, Rivka is qualified to be the matriarch. He assumes the role of patriarch and Rivka's matriarch, although she's not at a point that she's able to conceive because she's only 3 years old at the time. She cannot conceive. But because she's the wife of the patriarch, she's qualified to be matriarch. Now Avram no longer functions as patriarch. If Avram no longer functions as patriarch, for all intents and purposes, he's passed on. Although he continued to live, and his value had value as a tzaddik, but in terms of his contribution to Klal Yisrael, we speak about Ma'asav V'Sim L'Bonim, that the actions of the patriarch are foretell the future. Their actions, that came to an end. Avram no longer, he became a private citizen, so to say. He was a tzaddik Yisod Olam. His merits had value versus on a universal level. But in terms of the patriarch, the Av of Klal Yisrael, regarding that, he was no longer. Now Yitzchak is the Av, he's the patriarch, and Rivka Imenu is what? She's the matriarch. So therefore, after last week's reading, we don't mention any longer Avram, although he's alive. Ela Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram. These are the children of Yitzchak ben Avram, and Rashi explains what it means Toldos. They're the children. Who are the children? Yaakov and Esav. Avram holed Yitzchak. And then it continues, Avram fathered Yitzchak. So Rashi, of course, cites the Midrash, which is the obvious question. If Yitzchak is the son of Avram, it's evident that Avram was the father of Yitzchak. So what does the pasuk have to include? Avram holed Yitzchak, that Avram fathered Yitzchak. So Rashi cites a number of possibilities, interpretations based on the Midrash. That one of them is very interesting, which we discussed in the past, that it was Avraham. Before Avram, when Avram was called Avram, before he had the Hey added to his name, he wasn't qualified to father Yitzchak. It's only once he became Avraham, told us this is Yitzchak, is the son of Avraham. But why was he able to father him? He was able to father because he became Avraham. So we pointed out that Hashem said to Avram, until I added the Hey to your name, you're not able to father the future patriarch of Klal Yisrael. Why? So he explains to him what is the significance and the value of the Hey. So he says, just as the Hey has within it the power to bring about all existence, for you to be qualified to father Yitzchak, the future patriarch of Klal Yisrael, the level of metamorphosis that has to take place within you is the equivalent of creation. So to bring about a Yitzchak, that you should be able to father Yitzchak, it's the equivalent of creating a new world. So therefore it's Avraham. It's not just a human being participating in the act of procreation, bringing another human being into being. To be able to father Yitzchak, we have to create a new existence. Therefore it's Avraham. Avraham holed Yitzchak. And this is one Rashi just cites the Midrash. And then until he was Avraham, where he had the additional Hey added to his name, he had no relevance. He wasn't able to. Over here, he says, Orach HaKodesh, one of his explanations, the Midrash cites this pasuk. There's a verse in Yeshayahu. Yeshayahu Navi says, El Beis Yaakov v'shepodo es Avram. The house of Yaakov redeemed Avraham. What does this mean? Ki b'schus Yaakov nitzel Avram yikif shoneish. Avram goes into the kiln, he comes out miraculously. Avram, he went into fire. Why? To die al kiddush Hashem, to sanctify God's name. He would not bow to the idol. What's the value of his coming out of the fire? What's the value? If Avram will not have an heir, which will be his successor, to carry on his work, and ultimately achieve and address the objective of creation, what's the value of coming out of fire? The answer is because there has to be a Yaakov. If Avram doesn't come out of the fire, there is no Yaakov. There's no Yaakov, there's no Shiftei Koh. There's no 12 tribes. No 12 tribes, there's no bondage in Egypt, and there's no redemption to go to Sinai. So through who is the objective of creation being addressed? Only through Klal Yisrael. B'Shril Yisrael Shenikaracious. Only Yisrael, who are referred to as the chosen, only they are the only nation qualified to receive the Torah at Sinai. And who fathered that nation? That's Yaakov. So what was the value of Avram coming out of the kiln? Why was it necessary? Because if he doesn't come out of the kiln, the world might as well revert back to nothing. Because the world can only be addressed if there's going to be a Yaakov. If there's no Yaakov, there's no Yitzchok. There's no Yitzchok, there's no Yaakov. If there's no Yaakov, there's no Shiftei Koh. You don't have the 12 tribes. So he explains, Avram holed Yitzchok. Why was Avram able to father Yitzchok? Avram, if there wouldn't be an Avram, why did he come out of the kiln? Avram, Yitzchak was the son of Avram. But let's understand, okay? Great accomplishment. His father wasn't able to father a child because he was barren. He wasn't able to father a child. But why did he have that child? Why did God perform that miracle? What was the value? That came about because Avram Holed his Yitzchok. Because Avram came out of the kiln, he was able to have Yitzchok. But why did he come out of the kiln? Because ultimately Yitzchok had to father Yaakov. He says, "V'omro v'elu Toldos Yitzchok ben Avram, shebemtsusam Avram Holed Yitzchok." Because there are progeny that are going to come from Yitzchok, the son of Avram, that's why Avram was able to father Yitzchok. Elu Toldos Yitzchok ben Avram. What's Toldos? It's mainly focusing on Yaakov. And why is Yitzchok fathering a Yaakov? Because that is the reason why Avram came out of the kiln to father Yitzchok. Because Yitzchok had to father Yaakov. Ki zulas Yaakov, who told us Yitzchok for Avram nisraf kodim sheolad Yitzchok. Because if that ultimately wouldn't happen, he would have been consumed by the fire. He would have never come out of the fire to father Yitzchok. So over here, there's a midrash on this pasuk. Zeshem Rakosuf. It's a verse of Nishlei. Ateres Zekenim b'nei bonim. The crown of the elders are the grandchildren. The grandchildren are the crown of the grandparents, of the elders. V'tiferes bonim, and the glory of the children is their forefathers, is avosam. What is this referring to? Hatzadiki misach b'nei b'neihem. The devoutly righteous are crowned through their grandchildren. U'b'neihem misachim b'avosam, and their children are crowned, are glorified through their forefathers. Ketzad. Avram nisata b'schus Yaakov. Avram was crowned in the merit of Yaakov. Kishehishlichos Nimrod lo tocha kivshan. When Nimrod threw Avram into the kiln, Yora Kodesh Baruch Hu latzilo. Hashem descended to save Avram. Omru Malchei Ashores. The Malchei Ashores, the heavenly angel, said to Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, Loma Atom Matzil. Why are you saving him? Kama Risham Asid Lamud Mimenu. Many evil people will descend from him. Yishmael's children. Ultimately, there's going to be an Esav. What's the point of saving him? All this ultimate Chil Hashem that's going to come about. End it right now. Why save him to allow that to come about? So over here, the Eitz Yosef, which is the commentator Medrash, is a phenomenal question. We find that Yishmael was dying of thirst, and it says he prayed together with his mother to be saved. And the Torah tells us that Yishma Hashem el kol hanar b'asher hu sham. God heard the voice of the lad because of where he was at then. So Rashi cites the Midrash that the angel said, do you mean to say you're going to save this person? In the generations in the future, his descendants are going to kill your children, the Jewish people. So why save him? So he says to the Malachim, to the angels, at this moment, is he tzaddik or rasha? Is he evil or is he tzaddik? So he says, he's tzaddik. So B'asher Rusham, therefore my decision is to save him now. Therefore, B'asher Rusham, so if that's the case, at this point, what is Avram? He's definitely tzaddik. He's agreeable to go into the fire. For what? Not to bow to the idol. The angel said, but why are you saving him? Look at all the evil people coming from him. They, literally, identically, this is the claim the angels had said to Hashem regarding Yishmael. And what did Hashem respond? But what is he now? Tzaddik or rasha? Avram, if Yishmael is tzaddik, what's Avram at this point? No question he's tzaddik. So if that's the case, what do he have to, he answered something else. So the Eitz Yosef explains what they were saying was this. Of course he deserves to be saved. But it's unbecoming that you yourself should be the one to save him. You should send an angel to save him. Because there's another medrash which he doesn't bring. The medrash says initially, we know Gabriel is the angel of fire. He's the fiercest angel, Gabriel. He's the angel of din. Gabriel comes to Hashem. It says, I want to be the one to go save Avram. I will cool down the fire so Avram should not be consumed by the fire. Hashem says, I will do this. In the future, there are going to be 3 descendants of Avram, Hanan, Mishol, Vazario, when they'll be thrown into the kiln by the Babylonian emperor. You'll be the one then to go into the fire, to cool it down, to save his 3 descendants. But for him, I will do this myself. So you see clearly, Hashem is doing this himself. So they said, but it's unbecoming. If he's in person where these are going to be his descendants, it's unbecoming that you should be the one. You should send an agent rather than you should do it yourself. That's what a malach. This is how the Eitz Yosef explains the dialogue between the malachim, the angels, and Hashem. But the question is it really comparable to Yishmael? Is it really comparable? Whatsoever. Is it comparable? Now let's understand. Let's say, because of Avram's progeny, the evil ones, ultimately the objective of creation will never be met. So what's the point of saving him? If there is a purpose and there'll be an ultimate result, it makes sense to save him. Because let's see what Hashem answered the angels. Hashem answered, Omer lehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shul Yaakov b'meno shani she'osed lavo mimenu. Despite all the evil people descending from Avram, Yishmael and his descendants and whoever else they may be, but there's going to be Yaakov. B'shvil ben beno Yaakov she'osed lavo ani matzilo. Now who's Yaakov? Yaakov, we find, he fought the angel. He fought the Samach Mem. Who did he fight? The angel that attacked him, they fought to the death. This was the archangel of Edom. And the archangel of Edom wanted to kill Yaakov. Yaakov, because of his spiritual dimension, he was able to be victorious over the angel of Edom. This is when there was a transition in terms of his spiritual dimension from Yaakov to Yisrael. Because you lorded over God and man, and you were able to overcome them, therefore you're Yisrael. You're no longer Yaakov. Now you're the spiritual dimension. We are B'nai Yisrael. Yisrael means that there's nothing the Jew can't contend with. Yaakov, there was no spiritual confrontation that Yaakov cannot overcome. That's Yaakov. He's able to sanctify and to negate the material and the physical and spiritualize it and ultimately prevail. That's Yaakov. So what's the concern? Look at all the evil that are going to descend from him. We're not talking about just that you're going to have evil people. What happens if these evil people, they have the upper hand over the spiritual? That means ultimately existence will not meet its purpose. The objective of creation will not happen. What's going to happen? So what's the point of saving him? Yishmael Bashu Sham, we already have a Jewish people. They're going to kill his descendants. They're going to kill Avram's descendants. Therefore, you should not allow Yishmael to continue, so that eventual event should not take place. We're not talking about, is there going to be a Klal Yisrael, is there not going to be a Klal Yisrael? We're not speaking about this. We're not going to say, is the world going to meet its objective or it's not going to meet its objective? That's not the discussion. That's not the issue at hand here. But what about all the evil that's going to be perpetrated through his descendants? So Hashem says, but what is he? Is he tzaddik at this moment, or is he Rosha? If he's tzaddik, then I have to give him judge him favorably. What his descendants are going to do, it has no relevance to now. But what about if it has no value because the Rishonim, there's not going to be the objective of existence establishing the world as God's world. Let's say God forbid that will never come. God's glory will never be permanently established. If that's the case, what's the point of saving Avram? If you have an Esav, and Esav is able to destroy Yaakov, what's the purpose of existence? There's going to be a Yaakov. If it's a Kol Yaakov, Yadayim and not Yadei Esav. If the voice is Yaakov, he will negate the Esav. There may be that evil inclination which is overwhelming, seems to be insurmountable. But if you have Torah, you have the Kol Yaakov, which is Torah. There may be that evil inclination, but there's an antidote which I created, and that will dispel him, that will incapacitate him. That's Yaakov. Yaakov is the one who has that ability. Yaakov ishtam yoshev v'holim. Yaakov established all aspects of Torah for the future. That whatever we're confronted with Yisrael, we're able to overcome the angel, whether it's Samach Mem, whether it's the archangel of Esav, whether it's all the evil people of the world. What's Kisariset Melokim Adam v'tuchal? Adam is Esav and Lavan. You couldn't be up against adversaries as fierce as Lavan and Esav. Yaakov, he overcame them. He prevailed. That's Yisrael. That lies. We're Yisrael. That means within our potential, within our spiritual DNA, our spiritual makeup, our genealogy, we draw that strength. But when do we draw that strength? When do we prevail? I mean, we're guaranteed we're eternal. But when will we prevail? If we emulate Yaakov, if we maintain the Kol, and the Kol is Kol Yaakov, then the Yadayim will not be the Esav. And that's what he said. Yaakov, this is the Posuk, that Komer Hashem el Beis Yaakov shepodes Avrom pedo min akivshon. He redeemed them from the kiln. So this we see Hari Nisa'atru Ovos B'Shvil Bonim. So while it's the equivalent, Avram was coronated. The crown he wore was the crown due to his grandchild. No, you see something phenomenal. We say that Avram initially God was Elokei Shamayim. When did he leave Ur Kasdim? How old was Avram at the time? He was 75 years old. Hashem says to Avram, Lech lecha mi'artzecha. What? Here, this is the equivalent of a cemetery. As you cannot affect the person who's already passed on. Identically, Ur Kasdim, Choron, Ur Kasdim, these people you cannot affect. As great as you are, you cannot affect them. If you want to change the world and spiritualize the world, you go to the land I will show you. So all the Kiddush Hashem, all the espousal of monotheism, that he made the difference, even though when he went to Canaan, it was a Nefesh Osher B'Choron. He had maybe tens of thousands of followers. But where did he make a difference on a global level? That's only Oretz Asher Eko. That's taking, as the Chazal said, the Midrash, taking the flask of perfume, putting it among the living. You put a flask of perfume in a cemetery, nobody can benefit from that fragrance. You take it and you put it among the living, everybody benefits. Avram, you could only make a difference. The difference is only in the land that I will show you, it's Canaan. Away from there. But why was he able to make that transition? Asher Podo Yaakov. So it comes out, not for Yaakov, all the Kiddush Hashem that Avram was able to generate, when he came out of the kiln, that's when he first began his ascent. That's when he has his ascent on a global level, Avram. He became the Avamon Goyim. Avram became that fierce person. World renowned. He became Avram. Avamon Goyim. He's the father of all nations. Before he was only Avla, he was the father of Avram. When did he become the father of all nations? When he came to Canaan. Why? How did that come about? Due to his ascent. But why did he merit to live to that point? Beyond that point. That's the merit of Yaakov. So it comes that Yaakov is the cause of extending his life. It's interesting. Yaakov hasn't even been born yet. But because of Yaakov's ultimate accomplishment and his value, what preceded Yaakov's life, all that Kiddush Hashem is due to Yaakov. The question is, does any of that accrue to Yaakov? Does it accrue to him? How could it accrue? But Phil, factually, if Yaakov wouldn't have ultimately come about, Avram's life has no value. But what about all the Kiddush Hashem? But all the Kiddush Hashem has no value unless ultimately there's going to be a Klal Yisrael who are going to stand at Sinai to receive the Torah. God says, but what about Kiddush Hashem? What about Kiddush Hashem? You see something phenomenal. Now, there's a question many years ago. Rebbe Chana Wasman Zechat Tzarek Levrocha Hashem Yinkom Es Domo asked the question. We find Avraham Avinu introduced monotheism to the world. He changed the face of the world, the face of the map. Before Hashem was Elokei Hashemayim, he became Elokei Oretz, became the God of the earth, of the terrestrial level. Yitzchak carried on. Yaakov comes, and he lives through very difficult times. He has to flee from his brother. He's in exile. He's living under the influence of his father-in-law, who was a charlatan, who was the ultimate deceiver. And yet, despite it was in this vile, this spiritual morass, I came out unscathed. I did not learn from his ways. We find something interesting. The angel who attacked Yaakov, who wanted to kill him, he was victorious over the angel. Why did this angel attack Avraham Avinu? The world was devoid of God's presence. Avraham was the only first human being to acknowledge God as Odon, as the master, Adnik. What are you talking about? Samach Mem, the archangel, which personifies what evil is in this world, should have attacked him. Should have destroyed him. And Avraham should have battled the angel. Hashem doesn't allow the angel to attack Avraham. What about Yitzchak? Yitzchak is what? Is the Olet Tmima, the unblemished offering. In his merit, Satan cannot prosecute in the future. Should have attacked him. That he shouldn't be. Yitzchak is Avoda. Right? What's Avraham Avinu? Gemilas Chasodim. He's the Amur HaChesed, the pillar of kindness. Yitzchak is the pillar of service of God. Yaakov he attacks. Why do you attack Yaakov? So Rabbi Chana Wasman Zechat Tzarek said, the person says, Jews are known for their kindness, their loving kindness, their indiscriminate chesed. We build hospitals, we build orphanages, we build home care centers, whatever we build. Sutton says, it's okay. It's okay, no problem. You could espouse monotheism, but you understand, it's a temporary situation. Very temporary. We speak about Hanefesh Osab Choron. Avram was Megairis Hanoshim. Avram converted the men to monotheism. Sar Megairis Hanoshim. Rambam writes at the beginning of the laws of Avodah Zarah, he had tens of thousands of followers. Where are all these people? They don't exist. They just totally disappeared. Because if you don't maintain them, they disappear. What guarantees that ongoing permanence? Chesed doesn't guarantee that. It's for the moment, then it passes, it no longer exists. What about, we're going to build synagogues, Botei Knesios, meeting all the criteria, halachically what a Beis HaKnesses is. It has Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. The sanctity, everything. You want to know something? It's a temporary situation. It's not going to hold us. Sutton says, have the shul. Have the Beis HaKnesses. Have the women's gallery with the handicapped aisles. Whatever you want. Took you 3 years to build it. Doesn't make a difference. Yaakov comes, Yaakov Yishtam Yeshiva Holim, Barosi Eitzav Barosi Torah Tavlin. Now we're talking about an arsenal of super nuclear weapons. Yaakov is no ordinary person here. Now he has a mechanism where this is permanent. This is eternity. He's going to address and meet the objective of creation. The archangel of Esav, who's the counterbalance of Yaakov, attacks him. They're fighting to the death. And if Yaakov would have been sufficiently spiritually advanced through Torah, he would have killed him. And he wanted to kill him. Couldn't. This was a confirmation that Yaakov achieved that ultimate level through Torah, and therefore he's impervious to the attack of the archangel, the personification of the evil of Esav. He's become Yisrael. That's why he attacked. Only Yaakov did not attack Avram and Yitzchak. This is Yaakov Podas Avram. All the espousal of monotheism, it's a temporary situation. It means nothing. Of course, it means Kiddush Hashem for the moment, but it doesn't go beyond the moment. How do you secure it? How do you guarantee that? Godla Talmud Shatov maybe the Masa. Based on the Pasuk Torah, the Gemara says, great is the study of Torah. Because the study of Torah brings to the actualization of the mitzvah. Without the study of Torah, there's no actualization. But what about Avraham Avinu? Chesed. Introducing God. He's here today, he's gone tomorrow. What about Avoda? He's here today, gone tomorrow. Avraham Avinu. Born Yaakov. Yaakov is here today, he's here forever. Because Torah is eternity. This is Chochmas Hashem. See, when you do Chesed, you're emulating the way of God. Okay? But you have to recognize God to emulate Him. If that should cease to be, it ceases. You have to recognize God to serve Him. If you no longer recognize Him, you no longer serve Him. So what guarantees that we have that recognition? Ner mitzvah Torah or. You need that illumination. That despite all that exists in the world, how do you pierce that veil? This fog, this dense fog, this overwhelming tidal wave, spiritual impurity which we're totally engulfed with. How do we have spiritual oxygen? What maintains us? 13 million people in the world. 8 billion people. And what are these people? Do they have any relevance to Kedusha, to morality, or ethical behavior? And yet the core of Klal Yisrael, a Kodesh V'Tor, we're holy and pure. Why? There's only one answer. Because we have the Torah. That's the only reason. But why do we have the Torah? Yaakov Yishtam Yeshiva Holim. This is why Yaakov was the redemptive factor why Avram came out of the kiln. Not for his espousal of monotheism, because that is only temporary. What gave that permanence was Yaakov. So therefore, what the angels were saying, but it's going to turn out to be nothing. How could we stand up against all this? Everything's temporary. He's going to have a grandson, Yaakov. That Yaakov is going to generate a degree of energy. He's going to subsume them all. He's going to negate them all. So there's nothing to worry about. It's interesting. There's a very important Orach Chaim HaKodesh in Hazinu. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Klal Yisrael, "B'hadchil Elyon Goyim." When God divided the world among the nations, Ba'afridu b'nei Odom, this time the dispersions of the Dor HaFlogi dispersed the nations, the families. So there were 70 families. The 70 families became 70 nations. Yatzev Vulosamim, he set the boundaries of nations. To what number did he set the boundaries of nations? Lemisper b'nei Yisrael. Since we read when Yaakov went to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, it says V'shivim nefesh yordu havasenu Mitzrayim. So to correspond to those 70 individuals, Yaakov's family, we have 70 nations. So Yatziv Volos Amim, that he established the boundaries or the number of nations, that's to correspond to Mitzvah B'nai Yisrael. To correspond to the number of B'nai Yisrael, the Shivim Nefesh, Asher Yardu, the Mitzrayim. So over here, the Orach Chaim HaKodesh says, we speak about the 70 nations, and each nation has its own archangel. Its own archangels. He says, Pirish, Shelo Osa Hashem Kol Umos Biyat Sar Echod. All 70 families or nations not under one archangel. Each nation has its own archangel. And when did he divide the nations among the 70 archangels? When he established them, to correspond to the number of the children of Yisrael. Pirish, there's a very fundamental concept. It's based on a verse in Koheles. Everything there's always a counterbalance. There's a representation of good in existence. You can't have only one. You have to have a counterbalance. So if there's good, there's evil. As I always say, when did Avram pass on? The day Nimrod was killed. Nimrod was Avram's counterbalance. Who killed Nimrod? Esav killed Nimrod. Because Nimrod had the garments that God had made on behalf for Adam to track the animals, and Esav being a hunter, he wanted those garments. He wanted Nimrod. He says, I'd like those garments. He says, I'm not relinquish them. So he killed him for the garments. So Nimrod was killed, comes back from the field, fatigued after committing murder. Avram passed away. What Avram passed away? Because who was the counterforce to Avram's influence? Nimrod. It's a zel uvazer. There's always a good countering evil, or vice versa. Why? Because if you don't have the counterbalance, one doesn't have free choice. You have a choice now. You have good, you have evil. Who was the only one who could stand up against Nimrod? Only Avram Avinu. He wanted to kill and he came out. And he fought him tooth and nail on all the spiritual planes. But Nimrod was no less fierce in his area, in his realm of impurity. All the souls that come into existence, they come from two trees. Ilon echad tov echad ra. There's a good tree and there's a bad tree. What does this mean? Who was the original good tree that came into existence? A tree produces fruit. What is the ultimate fruit? Ultimate fruit is the souls that have come into existence. One's progeny is considered the fruit of his womb. Ilon atovu Adam Arishon. The good tree initially was Adam. Adam originally was created as a pure being, untainted soul. Ilan hara. Who was the bad tree? The tree that represented evil. Who samach mem. We don't even mention the name. This is Satan. Odom blial. It's a being that has no inhibition to perpetrate evil. No holdbacks. Uchshechot odom rishon. V'nis'ari rabetov. When the first man sinned and he allowed evil to intermingle into his goodness, chazru lios yotzim heolodas odom harishon gam nefoshes ros. The progeny which he produced, souls, were not pure any longer. They were tainted with this evil. Ad sheyotzad nefesh achas tahora. Till there was a soul, a pure soul born into existence. Sheba klulos kol neshamos hakadoshis. And within that one soul, it encompasses all the pure souls that are ever meant to come into existence. And that new tree was established anew. So this new tree is the equivalent of Adam before the sin. Yaakov was that pure soul, that pure tree, that included all the future pure souls that were ever meant to come into existence. Ze Omro, and he quotes a Zohar. The Zohar says, Shufrei the Yaakov, the radiance, the beauty of Yaakov Avinu, mein Shufrei de Odom Kadmo. He's the equivalent, he's a semblance of the beauty of the first human being. Means before the sin of the Eitz Hadas. He reinstated that pure existence, that neshama that produces pure souls. So what is Yaakov? Yaakov is that pure soul. Yaakov is the equivalent of Adam Kodem Achet, Adam before the tree of knowledge. Now, it's very interesting. We find that Sari Menu, she becomes pregnant. It's a miracle. Why did she become pregnant? It says each of them prayed. Yitzhak prayed in one corner. Rivka prayed in another corner. Hashem responded to Yitzhak's tefillah. In a dome, tefillah tzadik ben tzadik, tefillah tzadik ben Rosha. Because he was a tzaddik, his father was a tzaddik, so it had greater value. Okay? Vatar Rivki Ishto, she became pregnant. V'yisrotza abona b'kirba. The children, the fetus were agitating her. There was rumblings. What was the rumblings? So she went to seek it out, and she thought she would die from this. She went to seek out Shem, who was a prophet. Shem tells her, the two nations in your womb, one represents evil, one represents good, because as Rashi cites the Midrash, when she would pass by the Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, she would feel wanted something, this bolting, which caused a tremendous pain. And when she passed by a temple of idolatry, it's the same thing. She says, idolatry, that's a representation of evil. The one who bolts when you pass by the Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, that's representation of good. Shnei goyim bevitnech. In your womb you have good and evil. Now let's talk. The Gemara tells us in Nida, in utero, what happens when the fetus is in utero? What exactly takes place? So the Gemara says that the child is able to see, has a level of clarity, could see from one end of the world to the other. It says, Ner Dolok Aroshet, there's a candle burning on his head, there's a radiance, and he's able to see from one end of the world to the other. There's nothing which is obscured from his understanding. And the Malach teaches him the Torah's entirety. That's what happens. Now, so these two children in the womb of Rivki Menu, who was the matriarch, a holy woman, what was the equivalent of the innards of her womb? The Gan Eden. This is a pristine, holy location. The soul that's in Yaakov is which soul? This is the Ilan HaTov. This is the Ilan HaTov. And what is Esav? He's the Nochash HaKadmoni. He's that original serpent who wanted to destroy Adam. When he saw they were cohabiting, he wanted to kill Adam and take his wife. That's what the Nochash wanted to do. To destroy Adam. What does Esav want to do to Yaakov? Yaakov is the equivalent, is the beginning of a new beginning. He's the Ilan HaTov. This is the pure soul. He wants to destroy him. This is the battle. Yaakov is not allowing himself to be destroyed. He's fighting him, tooth and nail. Because that's the dimension of his neshama. That's the purity of his neshama. And he emerges. Yaakov is not the Bechor. Esav comes out first. Now, what is this existence? This existence, regardless of how you are, is tainted as a result of the sin of Adam. All human beings are descendants of Adam Arisha. Every human must die because we have an element of that evil intermingled in our being. But that has nothing to do with the neshama. By the nations of the world, not only was the physicality tainted, the neshamas were tainted. The Jew, the neshama is not tainted. The neshama is pure. It comes from the Ilan Tov. It comes from that pure, that good tree. but it's infused in the body, that the body has that impurity within it. So now it's a major struggle. The struggle is between good and evil. The good is the neshama, the evil is in the body. By the non-Jew, it's not a struggle good and evil. Of course, the non-Jew is able to achieve to maintain himself. But in terms of to be pure, he cannot be pure. Cannot. The concept of obot tidbok. A Jew could cleave to God. A non-Jew cannot cleave to God. Because only purity could cleave to purity. The neshama of the non-Jew is not pure. And because it's not pure, it cannot cleave. Now it's interesting. Eliezer had a daughter who was a tzaddikas. She was devoutly righteous. And Eliezer couldn't understand why Avram was not interested, didn't think his daughter qualified to be the future matriarch. So Avram says, I'm going to explain it to you. My son is Baruch. Your son is Orur. Your daughter is Orur. Ein Or mizdabik b'Baruch. Something which is cursed cannot attach itself to something that's blessed. But it's more than that. It's true. But what lies within having blessed genes, spiritual genes? Avram understood that ultimately, to be worthy to become a Klal Yisrael, to become the Am Hashem, we have to ultimately have that pure soul. If you don't have the pure soul, you cannot cleave to God. If your essence is cursed, that means how does the curse manifest itself? What is the essence of a human being? It's his physicality. The essence of a human being is his neshama. It's his soul. So if the soul of the daughter of Eliezer attaches itself to his soul, what happens to Yitzchak's soul? It's attached with something that's tainted. It doesn't have the potential to produce a Yaakov. So if it doesn't have a potential to produce a Yaakov, we can't build a Klal Yisrael on that. Because the ultimate is Atem Edveikim Hashem Chaim Kulchem Hayom. Ultimate goal is you have to cleave to God. If you have a cursed gene there, spiritual gene, you cannot cleave to God. Vivka Imenu, who was blessed, although they had an Esav, but because they had blessed genes, they merited to have a Yaakov. Yaakov is the Elon Tov. And because Yaakov is the Elon Tov, what kind of Neshama does he produce? And who are his wives? His wives are Rachel and Leah, also from a blessed stock. You have a blessed stock, and now we can talk about the Shiftei Koch. Now you've established not only the initial tree, which is Yaakov, what kind of branches grow from that tree? 12 branches. Shiftei Koch. Why are they called Shiftei Koch? Tribes of God. That means each one in his own right has a dimension of purity that they could cleave to God. Now we talk about, we've already established the foundation to address the objective of creation. 70 souls, pure souls, corresponds to the 70 nations, which are impure. Zelu Mazeh. This is the counterbalance. We go to Egypt. We go to Egypt to atone for the sin of Abram. After 210 years, we leave 50 days later. Where do we stand? At Sinai. To become the Am Hashem. That was the objective. So again, so what exactly is the story of Yitzchak and Rivka? The story of Yitzchak and Rivka is really, it's replicating, reestablishing the story of Gan Eden. What happens? Esav tries to what? Now it's very interesting. The Gemara tells us that Tamar, Yehuda impregnated her, and Yehuda thought she's committed something which is similar to adultery. And Yehuda, being a king, he gave a decision she should be taken out to be burnt. And she was pregnant with twins. And she didn't want to publicly disgrace her father-in-law, to embarrass him that he fathered the children. So when initially he asked her if he could come to her, she says, I need collateral, for the fee. See, he gave her three things. He gave her his signet ring, his walking staff, and his blanket. So she says, the man who gave me these three things, that's the man who impregnated me. So she said to what she was alluding to, that please admit openly, otherwise 3 individuals are going to the death, me and my 2 unborn children. So when she presented the evidence, it says that Samach Mem, Yehu, Samach Mem came and removed the evidence. That Yudah shouldn't see the evidence, because he sees the evidence immediately, he'll admit to say it's him. So by not seeing the evidence clearly, he'll send it to death. What did Samach Mem want? And Rashi says, who is Samach Mem? Soro Shel Esav. He is the archangel of Esav. You understand? Who was Samach Mem in the Gan Eden? It says explicitly, Samach, the angel in Gan Eden, that was Samach Mem. It was the same one, Samach, and who fought Yaakov? The Samach Mem. That's the archangel of Esav. Why did he want her to go to a death? So Rashi says, because ultimately, in the future, David was going to destroy Edom to a degree. So to prevent that level of destruction, if Tamar dies with her unborn children, there's no David in the future. I understood what happens at the end of time. It says at the end of time, Hashem is going to destroy the Malach HaMavos, the angel of death. The angel of death, Samach Mem, it's all the same power. But if there's no David, there's no Mashiach. So therefore, in the worst way, he did not want Tamar to survive with her unborn children. But who's Samach Mem? Samach Mem is the equivalent of Esav. Esav is the physical manifestation of Samach Mem. The fierceness of Samach Mem to destroy Kedusha, that's no different than Esav's dislike and disdain and animosity and intolerance for Kedusha of Yaakov. That's Amalek. Amalek cannot tolerate the existence of Yaakov, of Klal Yisrael, in existence. You hear the way these people speak? The world. They want nothing more, chas v'sholem, that there's not one surviving Jew in this world. Till today. The Samach Mem is in full force. But if we have Kol Yaakov, we dispel it. We have Schosovos, we dispel it. Together with Kol Yaakov. Torah and Tefillah. That's our power. And we have to utilize it. We have it. Nothing has changed. It's interesting. We study the Gemara. We study the statements, the words of Abaye, Rava, who were the leading interpreters of the Mishnah. Rav and Shmuel, Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. These are the giants of the time of the Gemara. Ravinu Ravashi, who compiled the Talmud. The Mishnah. The Torah Sheba'al Peh that we study is not any different than the Torah Sheba'al Peh that Rabbi Akiva studied. Except, of course, Rabbi Akiva was a level we can't even relate to, his level of depth of understanding. When we say Bereshis Bara Elokim, he says Shemayim Yis'oretz, you understand? Moshe Rabbeinu said those same words. The Chofetz Chaim says, it's the same words. If you shoot a nuclear rocket and you press the button, it doesn't make a difference if you're a 1-year-old child, or you're a 29-year-old, or you're an 89 person, with all the wisdom in the world. You're engaging, you're launching that same nuclear missile. We have those same nuclear missiles that we can launch today. The same ones that Moshe Rabbeinu had. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Bereshis bara Elokim. He said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. That's what he communicated to us. We heard it from Hashem. But that's part of our Torah. Nothing has changed. We have relevance to the Kol Yaakov. The neshama we have is the same from that Ilna Tova. We have the soul that's pure. Our physicality is unfortunately infected with all the influences of all these generations of exile. But what's the essence of every Jew? It's that pure soul. Therefore, the Gemara says, Yishalach b'shachoti Yisraelu. A Jew, he becomes chas v'shalom, becomes an apostate. He becomes a pagan, whatever he becomes, he's still a Jew. Because what is the Jew? It's his essence. It's his neshama. That's what it's about. You know, they speak about the Pintele Yid. Forget about the Pintele. Talk about the essence of the Jew. The Jew is his neshama. He just has to be activated. He has to be ignited. Every Jew has relevance to be dovig, to attach himself to Hashem. So the battle between Yaakov and Esav is no different than the battle between the Nochosh HaKadmoni, the original serpent, and Adam, except Adam failed. Atem Kriyim Adam. We're called, our classification is Adam. That was the original intent of creation. So if we're Adam, what kind of soul did Adam have? The pure soul. We're Adam. We're Adam. It's interesting. We find that a non-Jew does not contaminate under a roof, because it's Zos HaTorah Odom Ki Amos Bohem. You have to classify to be Odom to generate that level of impurity. So the Gemara says that there was a certain Amora, he actually was marking off the Norsa Machpelah, so Kohanim should not go there. But the question is, Avram wasn't a Jew. He was Ben Noach. He cites a pasuk that Avram Avinu was called Odom HaGodol. He was the great Odom. He merited that special classification. So even though he had that special neshama, Avram Avinu, but it wasn't special enough that he could reproduce. He wasn't the Elon. A tree produces fruit. Avram couldn't produce the pure fruit. Only Yaakov, who was born, Avram achieved that. He purged the soul of the impurity. But he wasn't naturally that. Yaakov was born naturally pure. He merited initially to have the pure soul. So what is he? He's the Elon. If you're an Elon, we talk about fruit, we talk about branches. So therefore, he's the Ilda Tova. That's Avram. That's Yaakov. Therefore, the confrontation in utero, it already started then. But you see again, you see the Zelu Mazeh. It wasn't enough for Yaakov to come into existence. He had to have the confrontation, the counterbalance. In the womb, they already had the counterbalance. If one would exist in utero without the other, it's a problem. To that degree, you have to have the counterforce. And what happened at the end? It says that at the time when he was about to be interred in the ground, Yaakov Avinu, Esav arrives. And he says, look, that's my grave. What happens? Yaakov's grandson, Chushim ben Dan, he sees the level of disrespect that's being brought upon his grandfather, takes a club, whacks Esav behind the head, his eyes fall out of his head. Literally. His eyes fell out of his head, and they fell onto Yaakov's legs. Yaakov passed away. Yaakov opens his eyes and smiles. You understand? Yaakov, no mess. So we're talking about one cannot exist without the other. Yaakov, they had relevance to life even after he passed away. They both were interred. They both cannot exist at the same time. You cannot have an Esav unless you have a counterforce called Yaakov. And that's it. And Baruch Hashem, we're still Bnei Yisrael. We draw from the power. Zoche Chasdei Avos. Till today, why are we able to survive? Why has Mashiach yet come? Zoche Chasdei Avos. Because Hashem still remembers the merits of the Avos. They were the Merkava. Their value was infinite because they were attached. They were the location of the Shechina. But when it's Zoch Chasdei Avos, Umevi Go Levnei V'neiim. But what happens when that Chasdei Avos is exhausted? There's no way we could continue. Therefore, Umevi Go Levnei V'neiim, that's when Mashiach comes, and then ultimately there's no longer representation of Edom, and that's V'olo V'shim Hartzil Lishvot as Har Esov.